Alright, awesome. So yeah, we are live after some technical difficulties here. I'm wearing my Baltimore Orioles orange, but yeah, with me today, obviously the man himself when it comes to anything Baltimore baseball, suffering through another Tennessee Titans loss of his while we have a Baltimore Ravens win. And Eric, I don't know if you're trying to be like me and take a nap so you could then wake back up to watch the Maryland game tonight that's tipping off at 11:30. If we're just calling it a day and just checking the highlights in the morning, but thanks for joining us.
Yeah, of course. I don't know. I've been I got I don't know if I got hit with something on Saturday. I've been asleep at like 11:15 both nights. And so the forecast is not looking good for me to stay up and watch Maryland. I may stay up. I don't know, but as of right now, we're questionable. If we're doing like Lamar injuries, we're questionable. So we'll
Okay.
see. We'll see, but I don't know. I hope they win.
Well, anyone who knows me well, like I bet you I probably fall asleep before your daughter does. So like I'm an 8 o'clock kind of guy, and I'm at the gym at like 5 a.m. or I'm up watching Sports Center at 5 a.m. But
Mhm.
yeah, man. So thanks for joining. Obviously, before we kind of hop into it, some not so great news. Kind of a friend of ours. You know him a little bit better than I do, but just one of the good dudes I think in Baltimore baseball. Jeff Arnold. They just said his contract's gonna not be renewed. I know I talked to Jeff a couple times on Facebook. Like just man of the people, solid dude. Anything that you want to say to Jeff? And besides, obviously, that will miss you, Jeff, and best of luck.
Yeah, I mean, he was great. I've known Jeff 7 or 8 years, maybe, going back to his days with the Keys, and met him there, and he got me involved in the Frederick Keys media softball game. I don't consider myself media, but
Okay,
again, Jeff let me play in that. I do have the last home run in that game, so I do want to put that out
okay,
there. Maybe they'll bring it back now that the Keys are an affiliate again. But yeah, Jeff is great, man. I text with him every couple days, and tough news. You don't want to see it happen to anyone, let alone someone who is as widely loved and appreciated by people. So I hope he knows that. I think he does. But again, it's a tough time, for anyone to not have their contract renewed, and it sucks because I love listening to Jeff. I think he's
yeah,
great on the radio. I think he's great on TV. I think he's even better on Instagram when and Twitter when Ben is sneaking up behind him and like scaring the literal piss out of him.
yeah,
Um, but no, yeah, I mean, like you said, if you've ever had a chance to interact, talk with him, if you see him at the ballpark, he would give you the shirt off his back. I've met up with him in Sarasota. I went down there for the first time last off season, and we hung out before a game. And just a salt of the earth guy. No doubt, whatever booth is getting him next year is going to get a great addition. I know he's still doing some basketball and stuff in the area, some college basketball. So I try and catch him anywhere I can. I'll always shoot him a text when I listen on the radio and hear him on there. So I'll give him a call or a text in a couple days. I'll let this simmer down a little bit. But yeah, I did enjoy seeing, as I'm sure you did, a lot of people with well wishes, and I didn't really see any negative stuff. And in today's world where everybody people will hate the sun, people will
right.
trash talk anything. There was a lot of positive things about Jeff. So again, he's as good as a broadcaster he is, he's a better friend, I consider him. So I'm talk to him in a little bit, but yeah, it's a cruel business, and nobody knows that more than those guys. So hopefully he catches
Yeah.
on somewhere local. I was talking to somebody today. The Nats have an opening. I think that would be great. I think that would be very fun. So yeah, shout out Jeff Arnold. He's a good egg. So
For sure, yeah, and we've been blessed in Baltimore, especially with our play-by-play people for the Orioles. I mean, I go all the way back to kind of remembering John Miller, and
hmm
obviously Jeff would probably be humble and say he's nowhere near kind of in that clout, but just as far as good dudes, good overall people. I mean, with the TV side as well. So yeah, definitely best well wishes to Jeff, and
hmm
speaking of Maryland, I mean, obviously we had Johnny Holiday as well too. So we've been blessed here, and like you said, just great people. But yeah, so I mean, we'll kind of get right into it. And I know neither you or I, when we kind of scheduled this, thought that we would be having a trade to talk about here that was anything of significance besides, like, maybe a couple minor league rosters here or there. But Taylor Ward coming into Baltimore, trading Grayson Rodriguez. And, I know you and I generally are on the same page on these things. And I think based on our Twitter interactions, you and I agree on the trade. I'll kind of give a couple of my thoughts and let you get right into it. But,
hmm
you know, to me, years of control doesn't mean anything if you're not healthy. So just the fact that people are acting like we're trading, prime Cy Young here, Grayson Rodriguez. And I'll just leave it at last year there were four outfielders, four total that have 30 home runs and 100 RBIs. Aaron Judge, heard of that guy. Juan Soto, heard of that guy. Riley Green, somewhat heard of that guy, and Taylor Ward. So, great company to be in, man. But, just overall, what are your thoughts on the deal? I mean, kind of surprised that Elias made a move this early, and surprised that they were willing to give up Grayson, kind of so quickly, or give up on him. Just overall thoughts on the deal.
Yeah, I mean, I liked that because, again, a lot of us were like, oh, nothing is going to happen, or Elias won't move, or he's going to wait a little bit. I liked that they were proactive and not reactive. I like that it's not January 30th and we're like, we still need this piece. We still need this piece. Like they recognized a need. It kind of, it reminds me of the Brian Baker trade, where they obviously traded him for that comp pick, which then turned into the rapper, the country singer draft pick they got. What's his name? Lil Slay, I think.
Slater De Bruyne.
Yeah. Who just released a new song. I heard it on Instagram. Go check it out. But again, that was like we have to act now on this, and because obviously the draft was coming up. This kind of reminded me of that, where they went out and they made this happen ahead of time, which again, I thought that was a good sign for the offseason. It wasn't like they turned around and were like, oh crap, what do we need something, what do we have to look through? And like they're going through the big $5 bargain bin at Walmart for DVDs and all that. But yeah, I mean, it was shocking. It caught me and everyone else off guard. But it was interesting that it was Grayson, and obviously we know about the injury history. We know about his inability to play, and I mean, I'll be the first one to say, I wanted Grayson to retire in Oriole, and I wanted to see this story finish. And we all, and again, there were people who. I saw some people kind of poo-pooing on it, but I think more of us were just upset because, like, emotionally, we love this guy. Like, him and DL were like the first draft picks, that we were like, oh, okay, we're going to rebuild and we're turning this thing around. And we wanted to see him through this and finish it. And it sucks that we're not going to see that. Again, if you ever ran into Grayson or talked to him, he was the nicest guy in the world. We knew the potential he had. It just sucks that we're not going to see it here in Baltimore. Obviously, like, I don't think there's any ill will from anybody on either side. I think it was a business move, and Grayson is now seeing this as a chance to go, play on a new team. And with Mike Trout, he's going to play with one of the best players of our generation, and Mike Trout, and hopefully they can end their playoff drought. And the Orioles saw a player who, and this is where I go back to, I think the Orioles are better in 2026 with Taylor Ward than Grayson Rodriguez, just because. Like I said, as much as we love Grayson and as much as we wanted him healthy and on the field, you don't know what was going to happen. We don't know if another elbow or an oblique or a lat injury would come up. You hope it doesn't. I pray and hope it doesn't. We just don't know, and that's baseball. But again, I think they're better in 2026 with Taylor Ward than with Grayson. So, and again, even like you said, the controllable years and stuff like that. This move shows me that they're trying to win this year, and that because what was the thing that people have said about Elias forever? Like, he hoards prospects, he holds on too long, he does this and that. He didn't do that here, and it seems like they've completely done a 180 on their mindset, or they said, all right, this is the year that we do. They recognize, they know that they need to go for this, and they can't sit back and let the offseason come to them. They went out and they set the market, because I saw Boston fans being like, oh, if Taylor Ward got Grayson, what can Jarren Duran get? Or, what can some of these other guys get? So, again, instead of, like I said, reactive, they were proactive. So, again, it sucks. I'm sitting here looking at a signed Grayson card and his bobblehead right here. I love the guy. I wish it would have ended here. And if he was healthy last year, this trade doesn't happen. I think you and I both understand that. But yeah, that's the cost of doing business. And I say this line all the time from Fight Club. Tyler Durden said, you got to break some eggs to make an omelet. This is what happens. And again, I saw somebody on Twitter too, and I thought this was the perfect just kind of encapsulation of Orioles Twitter, where if at any point last year or this offseason you had said like, oh, I hope Grayson's back, and I think maybe we get 20, 25 starts from him, they'd say you're an idiot for even thinking that Grayson will stay healthy. And then the second they traded him, those people were like, Mike Elias, how can you trade Grayson Rodriguez? And it's like, no. You cannot play both sides of this. But like, that's what happens. So I'm very excited for Taylor Ward. and what he brings to the team, and the people being like, oh, he's Tyler O'Neill. No, he stays healthy. Tyler
Yeah.
O'Neill sneezed yesterday
Right.
and is hurt.
Right.
He
Right.
didn't. Don't break that news. Don't
Yeah.
nobody run with that. But yeah,
Yeah.
again, I'm very excited for Taylor Ward and to see him, hopefully 35, 36, 37 home runs, and we'll see what he does. But it's going to be weird seeing Grayson, and I hope he does well. But we're on to Taylor Ward. I'm not worried about Grayson anymore. I'm worried about our starting left fielder,
Right.
who hopefully is going to hit 35 bombs and hit 250, 260,
Yeah.
something like that. So.
Well, I'm curious, because I haven't shopped at the $5 bin in a while. What do you think is in there? Like Bloodsport, PCU,
Yeah,
Airborne-ish kind of
probably
movies?
those like you can buy like the bundle pack of like Ace Ventura, and which
Okay.
again they're good. I don't get me wrong, like I have many a DVDs from
Yeah.
that. For those listening who are younger and
Yeah.
don't know what DVDs are, they were CDs that you would put in a player and it would show them on
Mm-hmm.
TV
Yeah.
after VHS.
Yeah.
But yeah, probably like a Friday 4-pack Friday, next
Okay.
Friday after
Okay.
next. I think we all had those. So.
Yeah. Well, and you brought up some great points, man. And I think both you and I are like, we're not Elias stands, right? We're not Elias haters. If he makes a good move that we like, well, but just a couple of things here. It's like I was defending till I was blue in the face when he was trading at the deadline. Everyone says these moves are helping us in 2028 and 2029. We need someone that can help us in 26. But that's what we're trying to do here. And all of a sudden, it's like I also kind of put this out on Twitter, and I'm going to hold myself accountable to it. Boston Bateman will be better than Grayson ever was in an Orioles uniform, and we'll be getting him in 2028 and 2029, the number 2 overall pitching prospect. So I don't think it's that big of a deal. But just and also I think people poo-poo too much of a 1-year rental. It's like if a guy can help you get to the World Series this year or make the playoffs or win playoff games, who cares, right?
And
Like, yeah,
we've seen again what is better than a power hitter in a walk year. We've
right,
seen, Anthony, look at Anthony Santander. Obviously his average wasn't there. What, he had 45, 46 home runs.
yeah,
That's when you want the power hitters, not when they have 6 years. I mean, obviously you want them, but not with 5 years control left or whatever. Those guys, again, those walk years, those contract years, those are big seasons for these
right.
guys. They know what they're doing. So we could be seeing another career year from Taylor Ward. So yeah, I'm right there with you.
Yeah, and one of my buddies who kind of thinks very like to me brought up a good point. We were kind of texting about it, and he put it on Twitter. The 280 guys with 4 years under control, they ain't going for Grayson Rodriguez. Like they're
Mm-mm.
going for a package of Dylan Beavers plus Mayo plus.
Mm-hmm.
So do you want to get rid of those guys? And yeah, you'll get a guy who can hit 25 to 30 home runs who's got 4 years of control left. Oh, you don't want to get rid of those guys? And I've seen people clamoring for possibly Byron Buxton. Well, there's a guy who just gets hurt.
Mm-hmm.
So Ward has been reliable. There was a very interesting stat that I forget who posted it, but I want to give him credit for it. But if you follow me on X, I shared it on there. So anyone who's listening, but I think 10 times since 2019, the Orioles have had a player drive in 80 plus
Mm-hmm.
runs, and it was Renato Nunez and Trey Mancini are 2 of the names on that list.
Yep.
And you're arguing about a guy who hit 30 and 100. Like, come
Yeah.
on,
For a bad Angels team, for an
yeah,
Angels team that was awful. Like,
yeah,
yeah, I saw that stat too. I forget who tweeted that too, but I definitely
yeah,
saw that. But yeah, you put him in a lineup with Gunnar and Adley and Colton and Jackson, like that's 36 and 103 or whatever could easily be 40, and not just him. I mean, he helps everyone around him. Like we
hmm,
have seen that. Again, we're going to get to this point where it's like, okay, do you want to face Gunnar? Do you want to face, Adley? Do you want to face Taylor Ward? Like there's not going to be many spots in this lineup if everyone is healthy. Where it's like, okay, you can kind of cruise through this part. Like this,
right,
he just makes the lineup that much more stronger. So yeah, it's
right.
30. Pencil him in for 35 and 100. Like I take that every single day. That's massive.
And twice on Sundays if we get a
Oh
doubleheader.
yeah.
So,
Well, I don't know the
yeah,
Sunday punt lineups. God
that's true.
forbid.
Okay. Yeah,
You
yeah.
got to give a day off.
Very true, very true. But yeah, so I guess we'll shift into gears kind of, and you definitely know more about this than I do. I'm not as up to date on my coaches and managers and who came from what organization. Certainly, there's a lot more progressive minded thinkers, but just your thoughts overall on Albernaz, just the manager hire as a whole. I know we last time we talked about Mark DeRosa, which would have been awesome, and it seemed like he wanted the Orioles job.
Mm-hmm.
But it's Albernaz coming from, you know, learning under Stephen Vogt, who was a first-time manager, and then just the staff that he built. Any particular manager or coach on the staff that you think was an absolute home run that he built, and just overall thoughts on Albernaz and the staff as a whole that he put together.
Yeah, I'm high on Albernaz. Again, I didn't know who he was. The second I saw that Jeff Passan tweet, I said, "Who? I don't know." But
Yeah,
again, like I didn't want to rush into like because you saw the people being like, "What a dumb hire! This is stupid." It's like, why? It's stupid because you don't know who that is. Like
right.
that's just not the way to think about things. So I let it simmer and I said, "Okay, let me read about this guy." And then I see, he worked in Cleveland and he worked in San Fran and then he worked in Tampa. Those three organizations, I mean, they are incredible. They could turn you and I into like decent coaches probably and managers. It seems like they're just
Right.
well-oiled machines. They develop players well. They're always talked about in a high regard. So that right there, I was like, that I like. That's good place. It's like looking at a resume and being like, oh, this guy worked at all these Fortune 500 companies. This is a good sign. But yeah, I mean, the staff he's put together, I like that they're young. I like that they who was it? Taylor Ward the other day said like these guys are fiery, and I like that. And you hear some of these interviews with Albernaz and the thick Boston accent, and
Yeah.
he's having fun. The press conference, I texted like some of the guys like Matt Wayward from the Sun, and I was like, this press conference is amazing. And people were like blown away. He was laughing. He was making jokes with Rubenstein. Like he was commanding the press conference, and it was like yeah, this is, and again, no shade at Brandon Hyde or Mansolino, but it was like this kind of seems like what this young team needs. And I told somebody, I forget who, but I said, again, I don't know him from a hole in the wall, but he seems like, and I feel like we all had like either a younger college professor or teacher in high school who was like maybe 4 or 5 years out of college and was
Yep.
like still cool. And he would let you get away with some stuff and he would let you have some fun. And
Mhm.
like we had a teacher who put on the ACC tournament, in the middle of our of
Yep.
freshman year and stuff like that. And it would just
Mhm.
be like, I will never forget Mr. Sullivan. We had a test and he was like, I'll put on the ACC tournament. It was like a noon game or whatever. And he was like, I'll
Yeah.
put it on, but you guys have to do your test. And then Maryland was like losing to Clemson and we like threw the remote across the room and we turned off the game. But
Yeah.
so it's
Yep.
like he's that younger teacher who will let you get away with some stuff and have fun. But when it's time for rubber to meet the road, he knows how to like get your ass in check and get you to like, hey, we got a job to do and we got to do it now. And again, Vogt seems like that kind of guy too, who we learned under. So I like all that stuff about him. The coach that I have read the most about is the bench coach, Donnie Eckler.
Okay.
Ecker, I think. Yeah, Donnie
Yeah.
Ecker. I'm sorry. So he was in Texas. I think so. There was some stuff that he got fired, I believe, in May. But they hired him to be the bench coach, and he has been. There was a tweet about it. I haven't really been able to find like an article or anything, but for the last couple years, I think it was 3 or 4 years, he's been training and coaching under Joe Mazzulla in Boston
Oh
for the
wow.
Celtics.
Okay.
Who, again, if you know anything about him and you've seen any of his videos, he is a psychopath. Like
Yes, he
he
is.
is crazy, and you need that kind of crazy. So he was. I think that's what when he left Texas, he was working with the Celtics, and so they went and got him from there. But yeah, I mean, search his name on Twitter a little bit. There are some fun stories about him, and Pigtown Sports. My guy Zach Moore just had a nice tweet thread about how he helped. There's a player, Brian O'Grady, who does a podcast with our friend Justin Ayers. I forget what his podcast is called, but Brian O'Grady is playing overseas, but he was playing in the big leagues too. But he had talked about how Ecker like helped him hit his first home run, his first major league
Oh
home
wow.
run. And so again, I can try and send you that thread or I'll retweet it or something tonight. But it was like a nice, like, he was like, I was doing this and he just told me to do this and boom, he fixed it. And like, so apparently he's a very good offensive mind. And again, he had worked with Albernaz in San Francisco, I believe. So there's some connection there. But yeah, I like him a lot. He seems like a very fun piece to the program. And again, I mean, we saw firsthand what the Rangers did in 23. And I did see that there was a stat that they've missed the playoffs in every year except for 23 and then win the World Series. So
Yeah.
some weird voodoo is going on there. But hey, if they can pull that off here, I don't give a damn, what they do in the next coming years. But yeah, Ecker seems like a fun guy. So again, I would Google him, look him up on Twitter, and find some fun stories about him. He seems like a very interesting guy who knows how to get guys, to go. We saw that offensive explosion by the Rangers in 23. So if he can do that to this lineup and these guys that we've seen what they can do, I mean, that lineup could be as potent as the 23 one for the Rangers. So he's my
And
guy that I've kind of had circled.
I know you and I are like old baseball guys, right? I mean, like we appreciate the past, and a lot of my friends are the same way. It's like you want that old school manager that has experience, but the game is changing, right? And I think the thing with Albernaz that people wonder about, it's like, is he just going to be an Elias Pawn, where it's like, okay, you got to go with splits, you got to do this, you got to do this, and like they think that the people lack a little bit of baseball instinct that the old school guys do, and I don't necessarily think that's the case. I mean, you
Mm-mm.
saw Bruce Bochy win in 23, but like you said, who was on his staff, right? When's the last time outside of Dave Roberts where you have every single player in the world because the Dodgers ruined baseball? But that's another thing there. What difference does it make with the managers? You know, you see plenty of first time managers, and Kevin Cash even kind of set that example of the young manager. And it's like
Mm-hmm.
people are like, who are these guys? But that doesn't mean that they can't be good. So I think that's the only hesitation that people have with that. And if we could get that mindset and shift it a little bit, and it's like, you know, these are good baseball people just because they're, you know, younger than me, doesn't mean that they don't know the game, right? So
Yeah,
we'll
and
start to see that, I think, a little bit more.
I think so too. And again, I think that goes back to like I've never heard of that guy, so he's going to be a pawn. And it's like no, that's not a thing. Again, just because Baltimore fans didn't know about a guy who was in the minors catching for the Rays, like just because you don't know him doesn't mean that he's not a good baseball guy. And again, it's like you think back to the organizations that he has worked with and been under. And yeah, I mean, I'm with you. And he said at the press conference, somebody asked him about analytics, and he was like, "Yeah, you need analytics." But he said it's not everything. Like you need, and that's what I when he said that, I was like, this guy,
Yep.
he knows. Because again, if he, not that I think he would have come in and been like, yes, I'm going to pull up my spreadsheet every morning and hit enter, and it's going to, spit out my
Yeah.
lineup for me. But he said, I'm going to use analytics, but I'm also going to use the eye test, and I'm going to use, your heart. You got to go with stuff like that, especially baseball. Like, I mean, you talked about Dave Roberts and the Dodgers. Nobody in the world wanted to start Miguel Rojas, and they were crapping all over Dave Roberts for doing it. They're like, "How do you start this guy in the World Series?" All he does is save my ass from a couple years of torture with the Blue Jays fans, and now he
Right.
allows me to post that home run off of Jeff Hoffman. So thank him for that.
There you
But
go.
again, he
Yeah.
said I think he like hadn't had a hit like all playoffs. And they were like, "You starting him in Game 7? Are you an idiot?" And then it's like, "Oh, look what happened. It may have taken to the top of the ninth with one out in the World Series, Game 7, but it worked." Like you got to trust your heart and your eyes and go with it. So yeah, he's like he said, I think that's the case with anything. Like I'm going to use analytics, but it's not going to be anything, and it's not going to be everything, but it's going to be part of it. But like you said, it's not beep boop beep beep. All right, spit out computer, please spit out my lineup now. Like
Yeah.
he's going to go with the guys that he wants to go with. So it'll be interesting though to see how that goes. And I'm with you. I think the mindset of like, oh, that guy was hired by Mike Elias, pawn. That's a pawn.
Hmm.
Like no, that's not how this works anymore. So, but again, I like you said, you and I think we're kind of right down the middle on him. Like we neither of us have any problem with saying that was a good move by Mike Elias, and neither of us have any move. We don't have any problem saying that was a bad move. So
Right.
again,
Right.
I hope we're right here, and with it being a good move, and I think we will be. So
Well, I think we're all waiting for the final piece of the puzzle, the assistant to the traveling secretary and George Costanza being hired. But outside of that, I'm with you with the staff right now. So it's nice and refreshing and things like that. So we have heard a lot about the Orioles being big players, obviously. So we'll focus a little bit on pitching here. I'm going to give you five guys. A couple of them might need to be acquired by trade, but you rank them 1 through 5 on most likely to get, and then your order on number 5. And I'm going to give you the 5 players, and I'll tell you who my number 1 is. But this is the 5 guys. So you have Framber Valdez, Ranger Suarez, Michael King, Dylan Cease, and either Joe Ryan or Sandy Alcantara, the kind of trade ones. And my number 1 is Framber Valdez. I mean, I would be ecstatic if we got him. I just think he's one of the most underrated great pitchers in baseball. The Orioles killed him, so for whatever
mhm.
reason, anytime we faced him. But he's my number 1. But I guess just if you want to go through that list and maybe start with likelihood that 1 through 5, with 1 being the most likely, 5 being the least likely that we bring them in. And then if you want to go right after that, your favorites, like the one that you want the most versus one that you would want the least.
I think my list is pretty similar to the list you gave it, and I think and for both sides, for what I think is realistic and what I want. I'm with you. I want Fromber. I think I think that's a guy you circle. Obviously, he had the issue with his catcher in that random game where he spiked him in the chest. Um, don't know what that was about. I hope that was kind of a one and done thing, but Again, I expect Elias to at least talk to him and be in on him just because they had that connection from Houston. And like you said, I mean, he's been a beast. I mean, he has been one of the best left-handed pitchers in the AL, if not all of baseball. For the last, I mean, it's been an extended period of time now. It's not like it's like, oh yeah, he was good the second half of last year and then this
Right.
year. Like he has a good track record. And again, I think also the fact that like teams like the Blue Jays and all the teams that are expected to compete, they're the ones who you see his name next to, and like the Athletic and all these articles saying, who should they target. So that's kind of what I look at too. Like teams think he's good, and I think he's good too. So that's a guy that I would love to see. And I think it's a realistic shot. Same thing, Ranger Suarez. I will say Ranger, I don't know as much about. Again, he was on the Phillies. I know he's a good lefty. I haven't watched him as much as some of the other guys. But I think I don't know his age even. I would love to be able to spit more about him, but I just don't know that much. I was talking to Zach Moore again the other night about it. And I said, like, that's a guy that I would like. I'm kind of blind to him right now. So again,
Right.
I'll do a little reading on him soon. And then I would probably put Dylan Cease above Michael King just because of the injury. Michael King was nasty when he was with the
He's a
Yankees, and
wild
in
card
the
to me. Yes.
yeah, and again, it's like he was good as a reliever, and then the Padres. I think I had him in fantasy, and again, it was kind of like, all right, he's back, and then he was hurt, and then he had the surgery, and kind of frustrating. And I'm sure very frustrating from his part, but probably just take Cease. I know Cease is like optically probably not the best. His ERA was a little inflated. I think his strikeout numbers were still pretty good, but again, I think that's somebody who this pitching lab, again, whatever the Orioles have been doing. I mean, we've seen what they can do with Trevor Rogers. Like, we don't need to say anything else. Like, if there's something that they can tinker with, I'm now to the point where I trust this organization to fix a pitcher. They made Austin Voth a very good baseball player for an
Hmm.
extended period of time. Like, we
Yeah.
forget that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would put Cease above Michael King, but I would really, really like Michael King. And then lastly, I would probably put the Joe Ryan Sandy talk. Probably just because of the trade stuff, and I don't know what it would cost.
Right.
What it would take. And Sandy Joe Ryan's he's a really good pitcher. I know the Red Sox were connected to him this year. I think that seems like a move that happens. Him to the Red Sox. Sandy he had that weird year where he was kind of up and kind of down, and all Baltimore fans were kind of keeping a tab on him. But yeah, again, that's a guy who we've seen him when he's at his best. He's one of the best pitchers in baseball, and he's won a Cy Young for the Marlins. Like that tells you everything you need to know right there. He's got the stuff. So I would be high on him. I just don't know what it would take to get him. But so that's the order I would go with. What I want and what I think is realistic. The
Yeah.
Framber Ranger. I think you got to put the two lefties up top. I mean, if you could get one of those two and pair them
Hmm.
with like a Framber, Bradish, Rogers, or I don't care. Put it however you want. Like that's sexual right there.
That's nice. Yeah. Yeah.
That is
Yeah.
an erotic rotation. I mean, I
Yeah.
would. Don't get me
Yeah.
started. But
Yeah.
yeah, and then again, Dylan Cease, Michael King, and then one of the trade guys. So
So yeah, and we want to preface this with, I mean, we both love Trevor Rogers, and we talked about how he needs to get extended. That's like kind of our number one priority. He ain't going to
mhm,
pitch to a 145 ERA. We're not naive, right? But he ain't going to
yeah,
pitch to a five something ERA. So you're going to get somewhere in the middle. And just Brad showed me a lot with the consistency of when he came back, and they just
Whew.
let him full bore. He wasn't coming in, and so yeah, you pair any of those guys in there, and I even saw a couple of things where there was a Mitch Keller mentioned kind of in the back end of the
Yeah.
rotation. It's like, and so people were poo pooing that. It's like, so would you rather have Brandon Young and Cade Povich going out there? Or would you rather have a steady guy like Mitch Keller? And it's like, obviously that's not the sexy move, but if he's part B and you get a Framber or a Ranger Suarez or whatever to go with that, like you said, that rotation is who's beating that in 5 games. I mean, you're putting
hmm
that up against, you know, anyone in there. And I do think, and we'll kind of talk about this a little bit later, but I do think that starting pitcher is one thing they're definitely going to come out with. Now we'll talk about that versus bullpen and things like that in a later segment in there. But yeah, I mean, just a ton of different names to keep an eye on here. But let's shift over to bats here. And I didn't give you a list of people. I figure we'll just obviously talk about kind of some of the big ones. But I guess what are your thoughts first off on re-signing Mountie, or just tendering him a contract there? Do you still think he gets moved? And like it didn't seem like he was in the best laid plans there. So very very surprising. But I guess what are your thoughts on maybe using him as a trade piece in any capacity?
Yeah, again, I mean, that's definitely a possibility. And again, Elias said, like, he's part of the plans, and we still think that he's a really good hitter. And I mean, he showed times when he came back from his injury. He hit, what he had, the 2 home runs in his first game back. And, the average was there. The power just wasn't. And I don't know if they messed with his swing with the wall and things like that. But I mean, when Mountie gets hot, there's few players in baseball who are, scolding like he is, especially if it's against Toronto. But I mean, I think also we saw it last year. You're going to need depth, and that's in any sport, in
Absolutely.
any position. So Kobe Mayo may be the future at first base with a little Samuel Basayo mixed in there. But also Basayo is young. Like Mayo is still young. They're going to need days off. And again, the injury bug. I mean, we've seen it bad the last 2 years. I'm praying to whatever God you believe in that they do not have the same injury luck. They can't. It's almost like statistically impossible for them to
Right.
get as hurt as they have the last 2 years. But
Right.
injuries are going to happen. So it's like, is Ryan Mountcastle the worst case scenario to have as a backup first baseman, a guy off the bench? Again, we've seen his glove. His glove, grades out really, really good. He's been a Gold Glove defender. And again, he comes through when they need. He's clutch. Yes, he'll strike out, and yes, he'll get cold. But again, you need those guys. So maybe they keep him as a bench piece. Maybe he starts out, I don't know, 70 or 80 games. Maybe they trade him. Maybe they do DFA him or something like that. But I'm perfectly fine with that, just because it's like, if not, I would like a little veteran experience. And we talk about it. Who's the veteran on this team? Like, now you obviously have Taylor Ward, you have Tyler O'Neill.
Right.
But Mountcastle has been there longer than any of those guys. So
Right.
you do need that guy in the clubhouse and on the field. So there are plenty of worse options to have than Ryan Mountcastle playing first base for you. If, God forbid, Kobe Mayo gets hurt or Basayo needs a couple of days off or something like that. And if you got to put him out there at first, you're going to get good defense from him, and hopefully the bat follows. So I was okay with it. I think there were a lot of people who didn't think it would happen. So again, selfishly, I'm happy that it happened because I enjoy him as a person, and
Yes.
and I think he rocks. So, but again, that will take my personal side out of it. But yeah, I'm happy that he's back. So
And you, before we get into kind of a guy that I really want to go over some of the bets here, I'm kind of torn on Mountie. Like, we don't pay people to be good guys, and
yeah.
I agree with 1,000% what you're saying. And I think he's a perfect example of the grace, and people love the concept of him. We all remember the 9 RBI game, and we've seen
Mm-hmm.
him get red hot. But if you look at the hype that he gets from a lot of the fan base versus actually his production, if you
Mm-hmm.
took his name off of it and we're like, look at this guy,
Doesn't
you
add
would
it. Yeah.
probably, yeah,
Yeah.
you would probably be like, maybe that's not a guy that I should be getting bent out of shape about. But like you said, kind of depending on the role that he's in. And yeah, I mean, if anyone is sold on Kobe Mayo, they haven't been watching baseball, right? Like, if he's your starting everyday first baseman and you play him 150 games, you're in trouble. So yes,
Yeah.
I do think Mountie, there is some value for him because he's still not that old, and I wouldn't be surprised if him or Mayo do get moved in some deal. I wouldn't be shocked. It'd be a little surprising, but we'll see. But you brought up the depth point. I've been saying this, even last year and coming into this guy. Obviously, we talk about the Alonsos and everybody, but a guy that I think is super super underrated, that I think would be perfect on this team, is an Alex Bregman. And I don't care what he costs. I don't care how long you need to get him. The guy produces. The guy rakes. I don't care positionless baseball. I don't care where you put him, but that is the kind of bat that you see. Okay, you have this in the lineup in the World Series. He's got that kind of experience. He's obviously got the connection with Elias. I mean, I think that'll be a slam dunk. And people are like, well, if it takes at bats away from Jackson, okay, maybe it takes the game away from him where Jackson DHs or whatever. I'd rather have the Bregman production in there. So I guess just thoughts on him, and outside of the big names of the Tucker and um, the Polar Bear and
Schwarber.
so on.
Yeah.
Yeah. Who do you think is like a name to maybe keep an eye on as well? And thoughts on Bregman?
The Bregman is interesting because, again, I have seen people bring that up, and the move Jackson to center and have put Colton in right, or kind of mix it around however you want. I think it's interesting. And again, he's a winner. He's a veteran. He's a guy that I think the young players will gravitate towards. We saw it in Boston. The thing with him is with a couple other guys, it's the injury, and he missed.
Mm-hmm.
He got hurt against the Orioles last year. I think it was that quad or the hamstring or whatever.
Yeah.
And again, it's kind of like the thing with Grayson, where it's like hurt guys get hurt, and
Right.
those injuries start piling up. And I don't think he's going to be cheap. I think he's a Boris guy, if I'm not
Yes.
mistaken. Yeah,
Yeah.
and again, it comes down to that. But yeah, I mean, he's kind of the perfect player if you're looking for someone to kickstart, to come into spring training and look around at a couple of young guys and go, all right, let's Y'all want to win a World Series? I'm going to show you how to do it, and follow
Right.
me, and I'll lead you there. So he's a great leader. It seems like he's a great player, and person to have in the clubhouse. I would love it. And this is going for him, for Schwarber, for Alonso, for Tucker, for all those guys. I really don't see any place for any like free agent bat.
Right.
There's just nowhere to put him. And again, it's like catcher. You know who you have a catcher. There's two guys that you're going to play there. You know who you're going to have at first. It's going to be one of those three guys that we talked about, maybe even Adley. Second base is going to be Jackson, bearing that he's not traded, which I don't think is going to happen. Gunnar, Westberg, and then your outfield is pretty set too. And people may not like that, Tyler O'Neill is going to get at bats. Tyler O'Neill is going to get at bats if he's healthy. Like, they're paying him, unless they trade him and move him. Who knows? And the Rangers have been looking. There's some little things that I'm seeing dropped that Corey Seager has told Scott Boras to, hey, kind of throw my name out to some teams. And there was a team in Baltimore that Corey Seager kind of, that I had, again, picking up stuff, had said, call the Orioles and see what's up. So
Okay.
that's another guy that, again, Boras guy, but you want to talk about hurt. Again, as a keeper on my fantasy team, I know all about that. But again, that's a guy who is obviously not a free agent, but could become available via trade. And I do not know what that will cost. And I know, again, if they're looking to shed payroll, if they want to take on a Tyler O'Neill or something, but they did just get rid of Adolis Garcia, so maybe they need another corner outfielder. I don't know. I'm just throwing that out there. But some interesting stuff. But again, it's tough for me to see where any free agent bat fits in, just because of how the roster, and again, Mountcastle kind of plays into that, where it's like, all right, well, that's another spot taken up, and that's a first base spot. I don't know. I just don't see anywhere without making a trade. Again, I know they talked about me, Rosenthal, I think, wrote it and was like, Kowser could be available via trade. Beavers could be available via trade. Obviously, Tyler O'Neill. Unless they make a move like that, I just don't see any space to take someone out and and create a space for a free agent. But I don't know. They could get creative. They just did it. They literally just did it. So we'll see what they have up their sleeve. But
And to the point that you made earlier, it does feel like it's more of a win now. So it's like, hey, we might just give up on Kobe Mayo, or it's like, whatever. Like,
mhm. And
Kowser, hey, the guy's, he hits 200, right? He strikes out a ton, So it's like, if you get a proven commodity coming in that can help you get there now, like I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility, but you're right. Like, current construction, it's like, do you really want to give up on any of these guys? And they haven't shown that they wanted to do that, but I think
mhm.
times might be changing a little bit. And
Yeah, and again, going back to the Seager thing, I think he has played some first base, or has said he has played first base too. So again, that's another thing. Like, if Bregman was like, hell yeah, I'll play first base for the Orioles, I think that changes a lot of things. Will he? I don't think he's going to openly come out and say that. He's going to try and get a bag from the Tigers or something like that. But again, I think if they want to get creative, something like that. I mean, you want to talk about a sexual infield of like a Westy Gunner? Is that an all Boris? That would be an all Boris
oof,
infield too. Yeah.
yeah,
So again, but again, it's like, hey man, if they win a World Series, you won't hear a peep out of me complaining about anything for a long, long time. So
no,
again, if they
yeah.
want to get creative, I think they can, and there's some fun possibilities out there.
And so one thing that you and I both talked about last time, kind of right around the trade deadline, was the depletion of the bullpen, and how we think it's very, very easy to kind of sign bullpen. I mean, they got Kitteridge back, so essentially you gave him to the Cubs for a rental. You got a flame throwing 19-year-old there. Resign Ends, resign Garcia, just a couple guys that were pretty good. I mean, both you and I know that we could build bullpen, but also closer, having to rely on Felix even for the next year and
Mm-hmm.
beyond that is something that I don't want to do. Love the guy.
Mm-mm.
He had his time, but you got to get at least one closer in there. So if the Orioles were to only come out with one piece, and it was like a big time closer or a Frambler Valdez, which one would you say, okay, that's the one that I think is the most important of the two? Obviously, we want them to get both, but just back end of the bullpen or top of line starter, what's more important for you?
I think you got to go front end starter. I think you just got to kill people with your rotation, and again, like we talked about, figure out the bullpen as you go. And again, if it's again, like we talked about the guys that they got, they got the guy from the Mets in the trade for Cedric Mullins. I don't know any of those prospects' names, but I think they added him to the 40-man recently. So it's like
Right.
there are guys, there are arms down there, and maybe again we've seen them do it with Cano and Bautista and Enns and Brian Baker, where these.
Dominguez, yeah.
Yeah, Dominguez is another guy that I think that I would love for them to go after, and I think he would be open to coming back. That would be great. But yeah, some of these guys, I think you can find a closer. It's hard to just like stumble upon like a true, front end of the rotation guy just kind of out of nowhere. So yeah,
Right.
I think if I'm handpicking, like if Mike Elias has in front of me like two hands, this is a pick your closer, pick your if it's like Edwin Diaz or Framber Valdez, I think you got to go Framber, every day of the week, and because again, I think. I don't know. I think Framber, I think like a starter mentally is like, we've gone into games before where we're like, oh, the Orioles are facing Garrett Cole. Okay, well, we'll get him tomorrow. Like, oh, okay,
Right. Yeah.
we'll Justin Verlander, CC Sabathia. Guy, how many guys like that where you go, okay, well, we're not touching that guy.
Right.
Closers, I mean, how many times did we see Mariano gave up? Felix, the best get hit. So
Right.
I don't know. I think from a full team standpoint, give me a legitimate like ace number one stud. Give me the horse on the mound, the bulldog who is like, I'm gonna bite your like again. It's like a prime Max Scherzer, like I'm gonna bite your face off if you ever try and come take this ball from me, Craig Albernaz. Like, give me that because I think that is something again that spreads throughout the entire clubhouse and the bullpen. And we've seen how contagious pitching is. So that's where I stand. Give me the stud on the mound.
I'm with you a little bit there. I mean, look at the Yankees pieces. They got three closers at the deadline, and they all
Super
imploded, right?
bullpen.
Exactly. Yeah. And to your point, it's like you could. The Tigers have Tariq Skubal out there pitching 9 innings in a playoff game. You and I could have been the only two options in the bullpen, and
Mhm.
they still would have been fine there. It's like, yeah, if you get that person that turns it into, hey, maybe I need the closer to get 3 outs or the bullpen to get 3 outs for me. That's not something that every team has. So yes, I mean, I think they're going to come out with the front line starter and then figure the bullpen out. I don't think you're
Mhm.
getting both. Anyone who thinks that they're getting both, like,
Yeah, like
good luck. Yeah,
I don't
yeah,
think they're gonna get Framber and Suarez and Diaz, something like
right.
that. But again, I think there are still plenty of. I think if you get Edwin, you can still get fill in your rotation nicely. And I also think if you get Framber, you can fill in the back end of your bullpen, solidly and still have a very solid back end of the bullpen, full bullpen, whatever. So
Okay, so let's say, obviously, Framber Valdez is on this team. Are you putting money on the Orioles to win the AL East and sprinkling on them to win the American League?
yeah, why not? I think it would be worth it. I was looking at like odds last night. I think they were like plus 3,000 on DraftKings. I think Gunnar was like plus 1,400 for MVP. Adley was like plus 3,000, which I kind of laughed at. But yeah, I think it would be. I think for the division, especially. I mean, we saw it this year. The Blue Jays won less games than the Orioles. The Blue Jays won 74 games last year. The Orioles won 75 this year. So we've seen the turnaround happen. Like it can happen just like that. And again, I mean, you look around and on paper, and that's the big thing. On paper, how many teams have a better kind of core and setup than the Orioles do right now? Like people would still say what you want about how hurt they were and how they underperformed last year. But I guarantee you there's a lot of front offices who were like, man, would we love to have an Adley and a Gunner and a Colton and a Kobe and a this and a that and how they stack up. So yeah, I said, I forget what I was on somebody's podcast right around the World Series. And I said, would it shock you if at the World Series next year the Orioles were in it? And they were like, no, absolutely not. It was a Boston guy. It was Rob Bradford
Okay.
from Boston. And he said no, because again, we've seen what they can do and they've fallen short, but like that's still a core, and those are still names and players that scare opponent, other teams and people. And we've seen them when they're good and healthy. We've seen how good they are. So no, I wouldn't hate sprinkling something on a division and a World Series, appearance.
Yeah, I think as constructed, this team is still a team that I think can make the playoffs strictly because we've seen that the guys are going to rebound. They're going to be better than they were. We're going to have someone hit more than 17 home runs as our leader, and like you
Praying.
said, they have to be more healthy. But yeah, I mean,
Have to be.
right. Framber would give me the utmost confidence heading into this. But all I ask is that don't make this like Mark Teixeira, where I'm waking up in the middle of the night checking rocks updates, and this was before cell phones, before like
Mhm.
everything. It was 2009. You wake up to pee, you go check everything, and like then you can't fall asleep because it's like, oh, we talked to Teixeira. So if we're not going to sign the person, let them sign with someone else. I don't want to do this, right? Like,
Mhm.
give me Framber Valdez. Let's go from there. I don't care if I do want Kyle Tucker, but I don't care if he doesn't come in. But just give us Framber, and like you said, I'll be watching every one out of the $5 bin. I'll be watching all the Fridays back and forth, and just then Orioles highlights. But yeah, man, it should be interesting. Winter meetings, 2 Mondays from today. So let everybody know where they can give you a follow at, and obviously if you want to pump your pod as well too.
Yeah, I'm at on Twitter at EDITTI22. Again, kind of just mixing it up, doing a little bit of everything, throwing rocks a lot of places. Terps football, big one.
Yeah.
But yeah, still I do like every now and then I just tweet out the Miguel Rojas home run against Jeff Hoffman, and I get Blue Jays fans just flooding right back to me. But again, yeah, over there on Twitter, annoying anyone and everyone. And then the podcast at Exit 52 Podcast on Twitter. We got booted from Spotify for some reason, and we have no idea why. So we're still trying to get up back on there, but on YouTube and all the other places that you can listen to podcasts. So.
Well, and for those of you who don't know, he also posts really adorable things that his daughter says. So I do like a lot of JoJo's the JoJo-isms, as I'll call them. Yeah, she's the best on there with some of the stuff that he posts. But you remember like last year when someone tried to turn us against each other? They're trying to be like, someone messaged me. They're like, "Can you talk shit about him?" And I'm like, "No, like I
Listen,
forget what it was. Yeah,
I don't know. I get it though. Like, I'm not for everyone. I fully understand that, and not everyone has to like me or like Barstool. Again, like I said, in today's day and age, nobody has 100% acceptance rate. Like whatever. Because again, I'm also like, if I ever have an issue with anyone and I see them in public, I will go up and be like, "Hey man, what do you want to do? Let's squash this. Like whatever we got to do to squash it. If you don't like me, you don't have, that's fine. Whatever. I am okay. I will not lose any sleep." But it's like I don't think I'm a dickhead in person or like, in public. Like we will have a beer at Pickles, we will have fun, and we will laugh. If you want to talk crap about me after, that's fine. It's whatever. But I'm not everyone's cup of tea, and I understand it. So it's all right.
Well, I don't think I'll be following your Maryland football tweets, mainly because I don't want anything to do with that game, Maryland Michigan State. As far as I know, that season's over. So no more.
What is it? 3-8 versus 4-7 or something like that? Like at
Yeah,
Ford
from
Field.
Ford Field too. How many people are going to that game that aren't just drunk homeless guys that like stumble into Ford Field? You know what I mean? Like to sleep.
I was thinking about that too. Like, what an awful game that's going to be to go to. But I don't know. Maryland basketball, we're back in a big way though. So
there you go.
So,
well, hey, thanks as always, man. Hopefully, we'll be cracking the beer while Framber Valdez is our opening day starter at Pickles, man, and just watching the Orioles do a Blue Jays like run, but getting the job done in the World Series. And I know you will never see me again if that happens. So this might be the last podcast that we ever do if the Orioles win the World Series. But like you said, you could kill me. Everything could go wrong for my life for the next decade after that. You give me an Orioles World Series, and I don't care if it's all 1-year rentals.
Wouldn't complain at all. I would.
Exactly.
I nothing in my life would be miserable if the Orioles just win one World Series sometime soon. So I'm right there with you. But
awesome, man. Right. Well, we'll catch up, man, and make sure to give him a follow, and go Birds. And Jeff, best of luck again.
Yep.
Take care.
Perfect. Thanks, man.
See ya.